Good morning. Welcome along to Sirius Social Live. I'm CJ, Managing Director at Immediate Future. As always, we're live across Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And shortly after airing, this gets filed as a podcast as well. So whether you're watching live, on catch up, or listening to us in the pod, thank you so much for dropping by and sparing us 10 to 15 minutes. Our title is Sirius Social, and the reason we give that title to this broadcast is, as an agency, we are very serious about social media. We believe it's our job to surface the finite detail around the complexities of social media and make sense and rationalize those and present that information to you in a way that allows you to understand it, go away, debate, dissect, challenge it, and then come to a conclusion about what that means for your brand and offering and how you take your social media forward. We only look through the lens of social media. We don't get distracted by other important digital channels like SEO and PPC. The reason we have that laser focus is we believe social media on its own is more than a day job taking care of it. But the focus allows us to invest a lot of time on a weekly basis, literally a weekly basis, meeting with Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Snap, TikTok, whatever your channel of choice. We work very hard to get to know the people and understand the propositions and offerings. And some of that information that's been really important in the last 18 months. The algorithm changes with more algorithms coming into the customer journey, meaning that single ad sets will no longer span awareness, consideration, and conversion stage. Anyone that's trying to race to the bottom line and convert off a single ad set, you will be getting weaker conversion and performance. You need to create a content series that warms through awareness, consideration, and then retargets for conversion to get those juicy, best-in-class metrics that are available in social. All of that information has come from meeting with the channels. Other information has come through our collective. I think Katie Howe will tell you that our leadership team has somewhere in the region of 70 or 80 years marketing experience. I tend not to talk about that because people then realize I'm perhaps a little grayer and older than I like people to know. But we take a lot of that marketing knowledge and collide it with the information coming out of social to make the information we package tangible and relevant and able to impact your marketing agenda. One of those is moments within social, moment-based marketing, which is the focus of today's live. I promised you 5 tips. I will get onto those very quickly, but I wanted to caveat these 5 points actually come from an 11-point workshop that normally takes a day to deliver. So surfacing 5 key elements in about 10 to 15 minutes and putting them into a live, I really am sifting just top line information for you. If you have questions or interest around what the workshop is, please get in contact with us and we will talk to you about what that looks like, or even give you more information around whatever your query will be. The 5 points I'm going to be touching on today that play into moment-based marketing span audience, content pillars, personality, objectives, and tone. If I asked any of you to call out a moment that meant something to you, some of you might call out the recent Bix and Beans brand collaboration that took place, and I'm sure you'd have opinions on the brands that stood out well early on versus maybe some of the brands that were a day or two late trying to make a cool intro late to a party, but they kind of missed the bandwagon. Others may call out moments like Mobile World Congress. That's been back in the past week, hasn't it? And it's good to see that happening again after a bit of a break. And then others may point to the ongoing European Championships or the Tour de France that's currently making its way across France. Whatever your moment, there's a bit of work you need to do ahead of time as a brand. Very, very few brands are able to be impromptu and capitalize in the moment and do it well enough to stand out where they haven't done a lot of work ahead of time. Now, in the case of Bix and Beans, I'm sure there are designers that had to be a bit agile and put together some content in the moment. But there would have been frameworks built ahead of time to discern the brand tone, where they can push the boundaries on having fun versus when they need to be more conservative and serious. For example, even a brand that wants to be playful and humorous, they're not going to be playful and humorous when discussing things like equality or political elements that are going on. I don't really want to get into any of the politics, but the point being, there are times when your brand can have fun. There are times when you have to be a bit more serious because the moment denotes it. Workshops need to happen across a whole myriad of topics. Let's start with audience because this is one that perhaps brands miss. Lots of marketers still make intuitive decisions around who their real customer is. We would always urge a brand to go and look at the data to show you who your customer is. So look at those who've transacted with you. Identify the demographic behind them, and where possible, supplement that with psychographic data too. The reason psychographic data is really important to Immediate Future, and it's one of the reasons we really harp on about this within social, is the psychographic data gives you all the keywords around the behaviors, the interests, the intent of the individual. And those keywords are critical within your paid media targeting. If you just throw in basic demographic detail, you're going to get a very broad audience. You set your creative off to run. It will resonate with some, but it won't resonate with a lot. And when people are clicking on those buttons saying, I don't want to see this advert, it doesn't speak to me, every time people are doing that, your reach is being penalized and your costs are going up. It's far better to layer in behaviors and interests, get a smaller audience that you can drive greater resonance with, getting those really positive metrics and conversions. So the first job you have to do to exploit moment-based marketing is understand the audience that's going to transact from you, and then consider the moments that are important to them. You hear us say a lot, content creation is about creating content that matters to your audience, not the content that matters to Mr. or Miss salesperson. They're just going to put together a credentials deck or put together content that's going to be talking about feature, advantage, and benefit. You're going to put people to sleep. Your content needs to matter to the audience. Your moments need to matter to the audience. So to understand the moments that are right for your brand, you have to start doing that work around who your audience is and the moments that matter to them. Let's talk about content pillars. We have frameworks within IF that allow brands to understand how to build content based on keywords, topics, visual type, values, message. It's a complex chart, and I shouldn't really be showing you this, but to give you an idea, it's a complex chart like that. I mean, you can guess who we did the work for. And the editorial output would be something like this. You zigzag your way through it. The point being, if you create filters based on the topic, the keywords, the values, the requirement, the output, everything that matters to your brand and your audience, and you're using that as a checklist on building your content, you're going to know that the outputs are going to resonate and live up to what you need. Moment-based marketing will pull you in a few different directions because the moment might not be owned by you. Let's talk Tour de France for a second to give you a tangible example. If you wanted to play into the Tour de France moment, you're going to have to use certain Tour de France vernacular. You're going to have to resonate with cyclists. You're going to have to resonate with people that have a passion about the Tour de France. But you don't want to drift so far away into that topic that you've completely detached from your brand offering. That brings me back to another point, that if you are trying to play into a moment that doesn't resonate with your brand, people are going to be thinking, do you have a right to be there? But the content pillars, understanding the thematics for your brand, aligned with the values, aligned with your audience triggers. If you're building content to those blocks and those steps, your outputs are going to stack up rather than just doing willy-nilly in the moment content. Personality, we get talked a lot. People talk to us a lot about personality and tone. I'm going to group these two together. To define your brand personality and your brand tone, you need to go through quite a complex workshop where you start looking at the type of brand that you are or want to be known for. You'll have to look at charts calling out keywords. You'll be asked questions about whether you want to be funny or serious, formal or casual, respectful, irrelevant, enthusiastic, matter of fact. Then we would go through keywords defining tonality of what you like and what you don't like. we pull all that information together and we kind of come up with almost a persona for your brand. This is important if you're an organization that has a complexity of personalities. And I'm going to talk Fujitsu Defense for a moment. Whenever I talk tone, I defer to Fujitsu Defense because they've got quite a complex job. They've worked with the defense and security services for decades. So there are times, moments throughout the year where traditional and historic events are taking place. Trooping of the Colour was a recent one. If we were all playful and joyous and colloquial and full of emojis playing into Trooping of the Colour, it would be a bit juxta and people would be thinking that's a bit disrespectful. What are you doing? Equally, there are times within the sporting agenda within military when the Army and Navy rugby match, if you're too formal in dialogue around that moment, people are going to be thinking, come on, let's be a bit more everyday language. We're not all stiff upper lip people within the military. The point being, something like the military has complexity of moments and a complexity of scenarios. So as a brand, you have to know when you can be fun, when you can be serious, when you can be tongue in cheek, or when you have to be respectful. So going through a workshop that defines the scope of how far you can go in each direction is going to be key if you're able to make a decision about whether Bix and Beans as a brand collaboration is right for your brand. So you've started to look at the audience and the moments, you've looked at your personality and your tone. You now need to be recognizing that moments is just a moment. What I mean by that is if you're banking your entire customer journey on a moment, you're going to come up short because a moment isn't going to give you the full customer journey from awareness through consideration phase and on to conversion. A moment is going to create triggers, awareness, peaks of interest. It may develop the start of a nudge nurture campaign where you start to take people through the consideration phase. But even in a brand owned event, on the day only content will not go from awareness, consideration, conversion, particularly if you're a high value professional services brand where your cost of service is significant. You still need to consider how that branded content from your on the day event then packages into a full nudge nurture campaign coming out of event so that you can walk people through the consideration phase, retargeting them around the topics and interests, the pain points they have, and showing how you can alleviate and solve those pain points as a brand, and retargeting those warm audiences for the value exchange conversion. Too many businesses race to get that value exchange out, using a cute moment to achieve a bit of resonance. But a moment is only a moment. It's a moment of resonance. You still need the marketing plan wrapped around it to exploit that momentary trigger, that momentary head turn that you've achieved. The nudge nurture campaign in context of the moment you're trying to trigger is key thinking you need to put in ahead of time. Moment-based marketing should be flags in the ground. They should be moments that you can trigger awareness in your brand. But the question you then should be asking yourself is, how can we extend that moment through weeks, months, ideally quarters? Hopefully that's given you a flavor about some of the questions and challenges you face as a brand. The audience and the tone bits are huge and they take hours to get through. But hopefully you can start to understand how understanding the tone that you want as a brand in context of the tone that's going to resonate with the audience you want will perhaps challenge your thinking and take away some of the intuition and start getting you to look at ways in which you maybe have to move a little left or right to play into a specific audience. Don't get consumed by a cute moment if it's irrelevant to your brand. If Bix and Beans is going to allow your designers to have a bit of fun and that's going to stimulate a bit of morale that's going to benefit the brand for 6 weeks, I would say crack on. But equally, if Bix and Beans participation is going to be detrimental to your brand, don't do it. Equally, if you're trying to force a brand or a message into a moment, I'd go back to that audience point. Focus on the moments that matter to the audience you want and figure out how you can exploit those. And if you do that, your moments will be more meaningful in context of whether that's you're a consumer brand and you're looking at incremental wallet values, or whether you're a professional services brand and you're looking at how you build your attributed pipeline. The same stacks up. As always, if you've got any questions or queries, do give me a call back. I'm out of time, over 15 minutes. I did say it was a complex topic. If you've got any questions, pick them up with me at Colin Jacobs on Twitter, or cj@immediatefuture.co.uk if you want to email me. As always, we'll be back next week with another Serious Social Live, where we'll be live across Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and into the pod shortly after broadcast. Until then, have a good weekend. Take care.